Hello there, and thank you so much for tuning in and joining me for this very brief snapshot. This is a preview of what we call Motivated and Dedicated for Success, or MAD for Success. My name is Jay Jones, and I am the creator of MAD for Success, and I am a body and soul coach, a peak performance coach right here in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, California. This is what I like to call as a labor of love. We have 10 seeds of success, 10 seeds of success, and we call them success seeds because naturally a seed represents potential, and none of these beats is what we like to call them. None of these beats will be effective if you don't actually activate them. But if you do give them the proper nourishment, the proper sunshine and light, then these seeds will certainly bud, blossom, and bear fruit in your life that will allow you to manifest the life that God has planted in each and every one of us. The life of prosperity, the life of abundant happiness, joy, and of course resources that we need to be successful. So this is a supernatural confidence. I think this will be a tremendous asset to you if you allow me just a few minutes to share some of these seeds with you. All right, so let's get started, jump right into it. Our first stop is to define. Let us define, if we can, what is self-confidence. I've ventured to say that self-confidence is your ability to attract the things that you want in your life, to become magnetized. Now, we know that a magnet is a powerful tool. A magnet is able to lift 300 times its weight if properly magnetized. So if we want to attract the things that we want in a powerful way, then we've got to create a confidence or magnetism in ourselves that will allow other people to become attracted to us. So how do we do that? How do we go about manifesting this magnetism? So the first thing we need to understand is there are keys to anything. There are locks in our life that won't allow us to access certain rooms or certain opportunities, and those locks require keys. So we have 4 keys to supernatural confidence that I think are very valuable, and we're going to discuss each key individually. But let's sort of give an overview of what these keys are. And the first one, of course, is culture. You see that. Then competence is another very important key to supernatural confidence. Then we talk about community, the people you have around you, and then finally the cause. Your cause is very important to define your confident level. So let's talk about the first one, culture. Now, your culture is your strong ethnic, racial, and historical identity. Now, what does that mean in a nutshell? Basically, are you proud of who you are? When you look in the mirror, are you proud of what looks back at you and who stares back at you, the man or the woman in the mirror? Or do you want to be someone else? Do you try to project an image that is not your own? Or do you stand true and proud and resonate who you are? Because we've got to understand that if we can find a cultural paradigm that we can truly represent proudly and boldly, then that speaks volumes for who we are. So our strong ethnic, racial, and historical identity is rooted in our cultural identity, and that cultural identity is what makes us uniquely who we are. That's what makes the flower so beautiful, is the cross-pollination of all those roses and lilies and all the beautiful flowers that create the garden and its wonderful diversity. So in order to first be confident in self, we've got to love self, and that means our own ethnic, racial, and historical self. So as we move forward, we talk about our competence. Now, competence is extremely important if you want to be confident, because competence is simply your possession of the required skill, knowledge, qualification, or capacity in any endeavor in which you choose to engage. Now, what that simply means is you got to know what you're doing in order to do it well. And in order to be competent, or in order to be confident, you have to have a certain level of competence in the area in which you want to excel. So we've got to create a knowledge, a skill set, or qualification or capacity, and that's extremely important. So we can't half step on building our level of understanding when it means we have to tie our competence to our confident level. You can't be confident if you don't know what you're talking about. All right, now we're going to keep it pushing and talk more about the next step, the next key, and that would be our community, the people you associate with or invest in and are influenced by. Now, we can't be sharp if we're around a bunch of dull people. Your network eventually becomes your net worth. The people you are around, the things you talk about, the imageries you subject yourself to, these are the things that will manifest your ultimate destiny. These things create your reality. So you've got to understand, you've got to associate yourself with people who will support your ideology, people who care enough about you to encourage you when you need encouragement, to correct you when you need correction, and to encourage you always to be the very best you that you can can be. That's extremely important to have a powerful confidence. And the last but certainly not least is your cause. That's your value added reason or idea for living. Now this is very important because your cause is so much greater than your personal self. Your cause is tied intrinsically into your ability to understand that your reason for living is to save mankind. In one capacity or another, it is your cause to save humanity. Now I know that seems very vague and very big, but in everything that we do, we've been anointed with an ability that may come to us a little easier than it comes to the next person. That might be singing, dancing. Some people say even wearing a nice set of clothes, dressing is a certain skill set that could be utilized in a greater cause when you understand how your cause affects your confidence. So let's talk about why don't we activate these things? Why don't most of us utilize these keys of success if we know we are barring ourselves from certain access to doors and locks that have prevented us from progressing and evolving in our future? What's the biggest reason? And I do believe that it is the fear factor, my dear brothers and sisters. The fear factor is a paralysis for most of us. We have allowed fear to indoctrinate our thinking and our reality to the degree that we don't want to move. It has become a paralysis, and most of us are paralyzed by the 6 basic fears that plague mankind. Now there's 6 basic fears, and let's talk about the very first one right now. This is one of the ones that most of us wrestle with on a daily, and that's the fear of poverty, the lack mentality, life based on not enough to go around. We look at it and we see what we don't have. And when we see what we don't have, we typically engender more of what we don't have because we don't get what we want. A lot of us wanted more money at the end of last year. A lot of us want more money right now. But we get what we envision. We get what we picture. We get what we imagine. And that's exactly what the fear of poverty prevents us from doing. It prevents us from seeing beyond our current set of circumstances. So we keep our fists so close, holding on to $1, that we won't allow someone to put $100 in our palm. We call it the closed fist syndrome. And a lot of people, unbeknownst to them, buy into the closed fist syndrome. So they stay in a poverty mentality, which creates a poverty reality. So poverty, of course, is the first fear that most of us are paralyzed. Fear of criticism, a need to be accepted and liked by everybody. Most of the people that we're trying to please don't have our best interests at heart anyway. Most of the people that we're afraid of hearing their criticism should actually be the people that we listen to as far as their criticism, because it should motivate us to do the exact opposite of what they're criticizing. And I say that simply to say most of us are paralyzed because of what other people think of us, because we don't wear the right clothes, don't drive the right car, don't have the right address, because we don't go to the same beautician or watch the same TV shows, whatever the case may be. We are so paralyzed by the fear of other people talking about us that we don't even go about the business of evolving ourselves in regardless of the people who say those things, because believe it or not, most critics have never engaged in the things they're criticizing about. So how you going to take any criticism from somebody about what you're doing in regards to your entrepreneurism if they are entrepreneurs themselves? Same concept. We've got to get beyond that fear of criticism. The next fear that we have to get past is the fear of lost love. A lot of people use this fear of lost love as a means to allow themselves to be treated all kind of ways, to allow themselves to be dogged out, to allow themselves to be treated disrespectfully because they think that the love that they have won't ever come back. And in reality, the love that you have, if that love is misusing you, abusing you, or treating you any way outside of the way that you were designed by God to be treated, then it's not a love in the first place at all. So that love, or that pseudo love, needs to be lost in order for you to evolve to the next level to receive the person that has already been destined for you. And lost love is not always romantic. It's about sometimes brothers who get in situations where they are in fraternities with other brothers, and they not just a Greek fraternity like most folks will think when I mention that, but fraternities of just kinships and bondships. And because you choose to go another direction, you feel like you'll lose the love of your homeboys or lose the love of your girl. Fear of lost love is a very powerful motivator, and it continues to keep so many of us paralyzed. Let's keep it pushing, moving right along with the fear of aging, vanity issues. The fear of aging has created a counterculture or a cottage industry of sorts with all type of pills, potions, and powders to keep us young, to keep us fit without actually doing anything, which of course is the exact opposite of what our bodies are supposed to be doing. Aging is a natural process, and if you do the right things for your body, you'll age gracefully. I like to always always say that fitness is the fountain of youth. So we've got to understand that the false ideologies of these manufactured ways of staying young are just the issues being manifest, the vanity issues being manifest in our fear of aging. And then we move on to our fear of disease. Fear of disease, our mortality issues. Again, that sort of plays on the last concept of the fear of aging. We go to great lengths to try to do things to keep ourselves healthy artificially, when in reality, we just need to do more things naturally as opposed to seeking external remedies. We need to be more internal when it comes to deciding what it is to keep ourselves dis-ease free. That's just not mentally or physically, but I'm speaking of mental dis-ease as well. And we have fears of those things, and those fears, as opposed to motivating righteous action, those fears have created a negative reaction to us. So the fear of disease naturally leads to our fear of death, the issues of the unknown. A lot of us are afraid of the time when we are going to die. You know, I have family members and very close family members who are afraid of flying on airplanes because they believe that, you know, the plane might crash or something like that. So that fear of death has paralyzed them from actually manifesting a full whole life, visiting family and friends and other places, visiting just sights and scenes in other places to broaden your perspective and broaden your horizon. The fear of death has paralyzed so many of us, and unknown to us, we don't know when and where that time may come. So we might as well enjoy life to the absolute fullest and not be paralyzed by any of the fears, but most certainly the fear of death. So what is the major reason why these fears have indoctrinated so many of us and paralyzed so many of us when it comes to trying to move forward and take full advantage of the life that we were given to live in this present? Well, I would venture to say that it is a concept called heterosuggestion. Now, heterosuggestion is the ideas and suggestions given to us by others, typically for the purpose of inducing fear or control. Now, we witnessed in 9/11 where the government took advantage of a situation that was extremely tragic, and they utilized the fear mechanism to think that there was a Taliban hiding in every cereal bowl in America. Behind every car, behind every door, there was a terrorist waiting to blow you and your family up. Now, those heterosuggestions that we received time and time again allowed us to be malleable when it comes to how that fear was being used. There was an act called the Patriot Act and a lot of other things that Americans relinquished a lot of their, birthrights simply because we were being manipulated by fear and control. Heterosuggestions are placed in our minds daily through the news, through the radio, through the newspaper, increasingly the internet. These ideas of doom and gloom, we're living in an area right now, next year, 2012, was supposed to be the end of the world. And of course, we've seen so many different heterosuggestions telling us to do this and do that. But of course, we've got to understand that we have to control our own thought process. And that's a system that starts internally. But we must understand how the mind works in order to prevent ourselves from becoming victims to this heterosuggestive fear and doubt that is being utilized for eons and centuries to control the minds of most humans. So if we don't know how our mind works, we're susceptible to other people who do know how our mind works, and they'll use our mind against us. So we have to create some sort of a mental self-defense. So let's talk about a little bit how the mind works. The first idea of how the mind works is we've got to realize that there are two minds operating under one brain. The first part of the mind is a conscious mind, and that is the receiver of information through the five senses and the reasoning and judgment center, the sower of the seeds into your subconscious, which is your second mind. But your conscious mind is what you're utilizing right now. You're allowing your conscious mind to let these words that I'm speaking go into you through your five senses. You're listening and you're reasoning, and if it makes sense, you allow it to seep down into the lower part of your mind, or the higher part called the subconscious mind. All right, so that's how the conscious mind works, and we use it every day as our five senses allows us to gather information, and we use that information to reason and judge and make decisions in our life. But the second part, the heightened part, this gets me excited right here. The heightened part of the mind is called your subconscious mind. Now, this is like the soil that receives and germinates any thoughts and beliefs received from your conscious mind. So we've got to be very careful when we speak the words and thoughts into our conscious mind, because once they fall and get past the gatekeeper, which is the conscious mind, then they go into our seat of real motivation and power, and that's our subconscious mind. So if you tell your conscious mind that I ain't nothing, I'm never gonna be nothing, I ain't never gonna have no money, I ain't gonna never be successful, then your subconscious mind takes that seed that was planted from your conscious mind and makes sure that your circumstances line up and make sure that you don't become anything. The circumstances that will create success will evade you, and only the circumstances that will validate your own thought process. If you say you ain't gonna never have no money, then you ain't gonna never have no money. Your money will always be elusive because your subconscious mind cannot take a joke. Your subconscious mind will not say, well, he just playing for right now. He just upset because a bill is in and he can't pay the bill. So I'm just gonna ignore the fact that he just sent in a signal saying that he's never going to be anything. He really wants to be something. No, your subconscious mind will never have that conversation. It's going to take you at face value and manifest whatever it is you think of the most. That's why we have to be extremely careful on what we feed our subconscious mind, because our subconscious mind will manifest or bring into reality what it is we contemplate, think about, worry about, have faith on. All of those things come through the subconscious mind. After we plant those seeds, we allow those seeds into our mind through our conscious mind, subconscious mind, bring those things into reality. So we've always got to be careful of what we're speaking into our subconscious mind. How do we overcome this powerful, damaging effects of the thoughts of fear and lack generated through negative heterosuggestions? How do we overcome the damaging effects? Because we are always subjected. There are over 3,000 images every single day that we're subjected to, telling us where to go, where to live, what to drive, how to wear our hair, how to wear our clothes, what's the coolest gadget to buy. All of these images are going into our minds. So how do we counteract? And I say you have to use your willpower. Willpower is the only defense mechanism we have internally to combat all the negative heterosuggestions that we face. And that willpower is called autosuggestions. Now, autosuggestions are suggestions or suggesting something uplifting, definitive, and specific to yourself. You see the little sign we have right here with the little failure and success thing. The failure and success is your crossroads. And that's what happens daily in our mind. We're presented with a crossroads. We've been given information externally telling us to do something. We have to counteract that external suggestion with an internal suggestion telling us to do something that is more uplifting, definite, and specific to ourselves. Example, if we define ourselves limited by how we feel at a moment, if we have met with some failure or some setback for the moment, and we define our entire reality by that setback, then we just continue to ask for more of what we don't want. But when we immediately stop that negative flow of ideas and thoughts, reverse the negative with a positive affirmation, then automatically we begin to infuse ourselves with a new way of feeling. Because when you feel a certain negative energy, it brings your body down. It creates a physiological response in your body. Some people call it psychosomatic. But when you have a positive feeling, then that feeling also creates a psychosomatic emotion. And now you're giving yourself a powerful, uplifting agent to create somewhat of a self-defense mechanism against all those negative ideologies and negative ideas that are bombarding us daily. So if we can create an affirmation or utopic environment in our own mind internally where we can control. It's a lot of things we can't control in life, but we can certainly control our reaction to things. The way we react to certain situations, to certain people, is based on how we control our auto-suggestions, how we can create our own utopia in our mind. Because the reality is nothing has any meaning in life, only the meaning that we give it. Only the meaning that we give it. So it's very important to understand the power that we have within our own minds. Now, how do we make this work? I've compiled 10 negative triggers. I call them the top 10 negative triggers. And these triggers are things that we need to avoid to keep from triggering a downward spiral when it comes to our confidence levels. All right. We're going to go over them real fast, but I want you to pay close attention because these are very important. The first one is shoulds. Now, most of us should all over ourselves. You know, we should have went to the store. We should have worked out. We should have read that book. I should have went to church on Sunday. I should have played more with my kids. kids. I should have been more proactive when it came to doing things that was going to be beneficial financially for me in the long run. I shoulda, coulda, woulda, shoulda, coulda. And by the time we should it all over ourselves, we've already created such a negative reality, because now we feel like we're powerless. I didn't do it, so now I can't do it. But the reality is, those demands that we place on ourselves shouldn't be in a negative connotation, but they should be inspirational in a way that, so we've got to prevent us from shooting all over ourselves. That's number one. Number two is we want to talk about the whole concept of assuming the worst without knowledge or evidence. And we do a lot of this most of the time, folks. You know, you and I both understand that when we assume the worst without any knowledge or evidence, we typically assume the fact that we are to blame or they don't care about us. You know, I have a buddy who's not extremely cordial most of the time. So when people speak to him and he doesn't say anything back, they just assume that he doesn't like them. They assume that he doesn't feel like speaking to them, but in reality, he may have been contemplating something that could benefit them. And he was so consumed with what he was thinking about that he didn't get an opportunity to recognize their speaking. So sometimes people are so they miss the beauty of what the situation could possibly hold in their favor. So assuming is also typically what we do, and it starts a negative spiral. You know, why didn't he speak to me? They must not like me. They must think that I said something about him or heard something about him or this, that, and the third, or whatever the case may be. The assuming continues to create a negative reality for us. Number three is a labeling yourself with a description based on emotion. Man, I'm stupid. I can't never do nothing right. Man, everything I touch turn to boo-boo. I can't never seem to get my money right and get my focus and get my things aligned. Well, labeling is very dangerous, because of course that is never really the case. You never really think you're never going to get it right. You're just feeling a certain way. And we'll talk in a minute about how feelings aren't facts. But labeling is another tremendous detrimental way to keep your self-confidence from maximizing and evolving to the level where it can generally become magnetic for you. So we got to quit labeling ourselves in certain ways, because of course the subconscious cannot take a joke. You label yourself and you'll manifest that into your real life. The third or the fourth one is blaming. Man, this is one that a lot of people tend to typically engage in. Blaming, not accepting responsibility for our actions. Is everybody's fault but our own. And when we blame everybody, we give them the power over our reality. We give them all the power and all the ability to evolve, because it is in the responsibility that we find our evolution. So blaming is extremely detrimental, because we give our power away, and you want to maximize your power, not give it away. So you've got to take some responsibility. Number five is comparing. Lord have mercy. This is the middle of the top 10, but this certainly could have been number one, like the shoulds, because we do this a lot in this modern day society, because we've got cable outlets and video outlets on every facet of our life, from our phones to our computers to our TVs. We have an opportunity to see what everybody else is doing. I see Jay-Z making all kind of money, and Beyonce doing it grande. And if I'm not doing like Jay-Z, then I ain't nobody. If I ain't balling like 50 Cent, or if I ain't balling like the dude who made Facebook, then I'm not doing anything. So we look at the lives of other people and we compare that life to my life, not knowing that their life has had a journey and their life has already been ordained and they're walking in their purpose. So when you walk in your purpose, then you'll be manifesting the things that God has for you as well. Women, my dear sisters, I know comparing is detrimental in your cultures as well. You know, women are worse than men to a certain extent. The way a woman wear her hair and the heels she got on, and you know, these television shows on TV, the ex-wives of basketball players and all these old other different shows that come on, really create a negative connotation, because we look at these lifestyles and we look at these reality shows and we think that our life should emulate that, not realizing the behind the scene things that really go on. And you would be so surprised to realize how these people are really living if you only knew. If you only knew. So comparing is extremely detrimental, as all of them are. But comparing, boy, in this new modern age with this new reality TV stuff, this crazy. Comparing is very detrimental when it comes to creating a positive self-confidence. All right, number 6, personalizing, opposite of blaming. Instead of blaming everybody else, it's always your fault. Everything is your fault. You're the Achilles heel. You're the bad luck. You're the Murphy's Law. Nothing can go right when you're on the scene. And again, that's obviously very counterproductive to you being able to build your own confidence to a level where it can become magnetic and attract the things that you truly want in your life. You got to cut out all the personalizing, overgeneralizing, the use of the words never and always. Girl, you don't never close the cabinets. You always leave the lights on a car. You never X, Y, and Z. You always C, B, and A. It's always something. So the reality is that's not the reality. The case truly is not. She's not always that way. And you are never doing that. These are words that we overgeneralize so much, and it creates a negative confidence in the people that we overgeneralize these words toward. So we've got to avoid the nevers and the always. Believing your feelings. We talked about feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. So sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. If you're married, sometimes you feel like being married, and if you sometimes you don't. But the reality is, you know that the feelings are fleeting. And it's the value that's the most important component to the overall objectives. What is the value? Even though you don't feel like being married, you know you value being married. So you get past those feelings of not wanting to be married sometime, or not wanting to be an entrepreneur when you know you don't feel like it some days, but the value of what you get from being an entrepreneur is so amazingly rewarding that you get past those feelings, because those feelings are not facts. And the more we realize that, the happier and the more well off we'll be when it comes to our own self-confidence. Number 9 is binding the positives. We all know people who you can say, man, you know, I look like you've been working out a little bit, Billy. Look like you're looking a little good, man. You look like you dropped a few pounds. Yeah, man, I dropped a few pounds, but you know, I ain't got that 6-pack yet. You know what I'm saying? Or you tell somebody, you know, I see your business growing. You know, looks like you got a few more customers. Things are looking a little bit up, you know, looking better, a little brighter. And that person will respond with, yeah, but I ain't really got the thing I wanted yet. You know, I want to have a location down in Beverly Hills. So I'm still out here in Leimert Park. So, you know, I ain't doing as good as I want to do. But they're not realizing how good they are doing. It's like that attitude of gratitude. You know, positive is an attitude of gratitude. So we want to make sure that all of these things line up. All right. And last but not least is that perfectionism. Get off the drawing board. All or nothing. Either it's going to be perfect, I ain't going to get off the drawing board and do nothing. And we've got to avoid that. That's got to be the main thing that we've got to stop doing. We can function in some of our dysfunction. We just need to start moving. Momentum has a tremendous way of galvanizing itself when we start moving. Get off the drawing board and become active at what you're doing. And our action plan is to relate, or to repeat, and to reframe. That is to relate to a new group of people, a new organization, learn new skills, learn new ideas, repeat those skills, repeat those ideas until you reframed your entire existence. And you look back on your old self and you don't even recognize who you used to be by relating to someone, a new group, new organizations, repeating that information and new skill set, and reframing your whole existence. And finally, we shall rejoice in our new paradigm, our new evolution, and become brand new people. So I thank you so much for this opportunity to share these brief seeds of success. Please share this presentation with as many people as you think will find value in it. And I certainly look forward to seeing you guys on the other side. Thank you so much. And MAD for success, and a mental transformation, shall I say, that leads to a conscious restoration and a physical activation of your most successful self. This is Jay Jones. Thank you so much. I love you all, and pass this on.